Hello and welcome to the live stream. Today we are talking all about live production. So if you've got any questions, then feel free to just drop them into the chat. And whatever it is related to studio gear, tech, or live production, it's all good. And I thought it'd be useful just to start to talk about live production and what actually we mean by this, because I think sometimes when people hear it, they are assuming that it means some full-on TV level, broadcast level production. Whereas in actual fact, I think of live production as just what we are able to do now from the comfort of our desks, and where we are basically just switching between even just a couple of scenes to be able to show off things in a Zoom call, in a meeting, in a webinar, or whatever the case may be, or of course live streams like this, but also recorded videos. So for those that are new to the channel, I do make all my videos in one take with no edits, and the real thing that has enabled me to do this is a piece of software called Ecamm Live. There are other alternative pieces of software out there. Other providers are available, such as OBS and other live production software. But essentially, it's this thing that allows us to do some scene switching. So if I wanted to share Safari, for example, the browser over on my screen over here, I just look down at my Stream Deck, or rather feel down at my Stream Deck and press this button, and it's going to take me over to that scene. And so even just as something as simple as this on a Zoom call, I would class as live production. It's just basically having this more produced effect where you are bringing information on and off the screen, whatever the value is you're trying to deliver, be it through video, live streaming, or just in meetings, then we have this power at our essentially at our fingertips. Now, I'm controlling this with Stream Decks. You don't need to have this many Stream Decks, but one will do. But it's still just this thing that acts as this mission control then that allows us to connect our live production software, maybe our screen sharing and presentations and things like that, and then just with a touch of a button to be able to flick back to another screen. So when I'm talking about live production, it can be as simple as that. Just a couple of scenes, you're pressing buttons to go back and forth between them. Maybe you are recording as well, so we've got a nice record button in Ecamm, and as I say, that's how all the videos of my channel are made. Just talking in the backstage a moment ago with Florence, hi, in the chat as well, about this idea of doing a video every day, which is something that she's doing throughout this month, and that's something that I did when I started on YouTube, and quite honestly, I wouldn't have been able to do that without this live production equipment that we've got. And when I started, I just had Ecamm, my Shure MV7, and then a 10-year-old camera, and you don't really need a huge amount of gear to be able to do this, but I wouldn't have been able to make all of those videos without the sort of live production philosophy behind it, and the one-take production. And of course, that is the real benefit of the live production, is you aren't doing any editing after the fact. You aren't having to sort of piece together your camera with your screen share or graphics that you're bringing up on screen. It can just all be done sort of live. And really, as you start doing this more and more, you will find that you just get this muscle memory of being able to know, which button to press on your Stream Deck to go to which scene. And so then things can just sort of flow a lot more naturally, where, if I want to, as I say, use the same example there, maybe I want to show you my Stream Deck application, then I just press a button here and it's going to take me over to the screen share for that. And so then as you are just naturally talking, it just becomes much more sort of in flow. So that is the benefit of live production. And so, as I say, when I talk about live production, that's what we're talking about. So any questions you've got about the tech, the gear, or anything like that, feel free to drop them into the chat. Let me just say a quick hello as well. We've got some folks in the backstage, but hi, Taisha, joining in the chat as well. Great to see you here. So yeah, any questions, drop them all in the chat. I have, of course, got a long list of questions that have come in to me over the past however long, that just seem to sort of build up. And with doing the office hours sessions that we do in the academy, there's always new things coming up there, and with consultation calls and so on, there's lots of things that I always get sort of similar questions that come out of that. So I've got a few of those to refer to as well, but feel free to drop yours in the chat. So first of all, something that's come up relatively recently is this Ecamm for Zoom. Now, for those that don't know, Ecamm is the live production software that I'm using, but it also now has a deep integration with Zoom, whereby if you've got participants in a Zoom call, you can actually include them into your production as well. So just to give you a quick demonstration of Ecamm for the uninitiated, this is what I'm using to power this stream right now. We've got this area here, which obviously shows what you were just seeing, but then we've got a whole series of different scenes down here. So this screen share scene that I was showing you earlier is this one, which is basically sharing the top left portion of my screen. So just to show you that quickly, here is my main monitor. If my camera stops freezing, here's my main monitor, and I've got this area of the screen up here that's got my browser in. And so So if I press this button on my Stream Deck, it's going to switch to that scene just over there. You'll see it switches over to that scene, and now we are sharing that area of the screen. So this is the way that Ecamm works. Basically, you've got a whole series of different scenes that are doing different things, incorporating different cameras, but you can pull in your guests that are in the Zoom. So right now we've got a Zoom running in the backstage area here, and so you can see Zoom participants, and I can set up a scene which basically could pull any of those participants in if we needed to. So for like an event like the Digital Stage Summit, which I'm running in just over a week, then that is going to all be run using Ecamm for Zoom, pulling in the speakers and putting them into those slots on the screen. So the question was, to get to the point, why would we use Ecamm for Zoom rather than regular Zoom and just use the Ecamm Live virtual camera? Because Ecamm Live, OBS, and other live production software, they have these virtual cameras which basically present your entire production to the computer as if it was just a camera feed. So that means then that you can take your entire production into, for example, Zoom or Teams or FaceTime or whatever, and just use your production as the camera feed in. So you can still do that with regular Zoom. So the question was, why would you use Ecamm for Zoom rather than just regular Zoom? Well, really, it comes down to if you're wanting to make that return trip. So the virtual camera and the virtual mic are sending your production video and audio into those platforms, but it's where really you want to actually pull out people from the Zoom, the participants, and incorporate them, as I've just shown, into the production. That's really the value of it, is that return trip. Same with the audio as well. Quite often people are doing things on Zoom where they want to record the Zoom presentation, like if you're doing a webinar or something like that, or a presentation to an audience or workshop, and you want to be able to capture the audio, like the guest audio, and maybe even you're doing a Q&A, you want to have the guest audio and video. That would be another use case for using Ecamm for Zoom rather than regular Zoom. However, it is still perfectly okay to just use the regular virtual camera if all you're doing is doing some sort of screen sharing, showing off things as I just demonstrated there, bringing in some PowerPoint or Keynote slides or whatever, doing a screen share, then that is something that you can still just do with regular Zoom. You can also use the two of them side by side. So in actual fact, for the summit that I've got coming up, I will be using Ecamm for Zoom on my main computer and also regular Zoom as well on my main computer, so that I can kind of join as with two instances. And the reason for that in that case is that I'm bringing the speakers in, they're going into the production, which is being streamed out, but I want to have kind of like a back channel to be able to speak with the speakers while we're sort of technically off air, but also, the production's still going on, but we are ourselves off air. Then I can still chat with them like that. Another instance where you might want to use the two of them together is maybe you've got an event where you've got guest speakers coming in on the Ecamm for Zoom, incorporating them into the presentation, but then you've got like a workshop where you've got participants and you just want to route those people into that particular meeting. So that would be another way that you could use the two of them together. So lots of ways that you can use the two together. And I'll be doing a full sort of walkthrough of how I'm doing the Digital Stage Summit production actually as a full-on workshop, and that will be available to the VIP ticket holders for the event. I should probably just mention the event since, or give you a link to the event, I should say, and tell you what this is, just so that as we go through the other points, you'll have a bit more context. So the Digital Stage Summit is a 3-day event with over 30 speakers. We're sort of adding in more as we go along, actually. So, and it's over 3 days, and it's all about really how to build out the sort of tools that I talk about on my channel. So from a live production standpoint, what are the tech tools? Yes, but also the software that you can use as well, and the methods to sort of get better at showing up online on screen with your sort of video first online presence, be it recorded content, live stream content, or just even in your regular Zoom meetings. So day one's going to be focused on that toolkit. Then obviously you do have to be on screen, presumably. So that is then the focus of day two, and all the different ways you can improve the way that you show up on screen, but also engage with your audience and grow that video first presence. And then the day 3 is all about, if you are delivering your value effectively online, then being able to monetize it is obviously quite an important part of the process if that's going to be your sort of primary thing. So day 3 is going to be talking all about how to scale online and looking at various different ways to do that. But it's not just about monetization strategies as such. It's also about the mindset that you need to have in order to do that effectively. So we've got some amazing speakers lined up. There's going to be some more added to the site shortly, but if I just take you through to the speaker list, they've got some we've got some amazing people, and they're going to be sharing some amazing sessions. And I'm quite honestly humbled by all the amazing people that are coming to speak at the event. It's kind of amazing to me personally, because these are all people that I look up to and I admire, and I'll certainly be there. Yes, I'm delivering some sessions myself, but I'll certainly be there taking notes for the others as well. Day 1 with Chris Stone talking about how to use Descript effectively to elevate your content creation. Luria Petrucci talking about unlocking confidence on live video. Luria is just one of those people that I've been aware of in this content creation space for years and years, when video podcasting first became sort of a thing, and online video. Lauria's got to be one of the first that was doing that, and so it's amazing to have her speak. Doc talking about the perfectionist trap, something I'm no stranger to. Another great reason to adopt the video first and the one take methodology is to get over that perfectionism. You realize once you start just creating stuff and putting it out that nobody really cares about the little mistakes. Well, perhaps some people do, but most people don't. So it's a great way to just get over yourself and start creating. And Tanya, another great person. She's just got such an amazingly professional setup and look with everything that she does. Great to have her speaking there. I won't go through all the speakers, but just to say that the list goes on and on and on, and it's just an awesome lineup that are going to help you with every aspect of your video first online presence. And it is a free event, so there is a free pass. There is replays available with 12 hours of content every day for 3 days. Obviously, you might not be able to make it all. Replays will be available to the end of the following week as well. And then if you want to have full-time, lifetime access to that, there is a VIP pass available as well. And as part of that, you'll get access to that workshop that I'll be running, where I'll be breaking down all of the technical side of it, so how the actual running of the event was handled, but then also the from start to finish, the promotion, the setup, the idea behind it, how I handled the idea of sponsorships and guest speakers and the various other different things that I've added in. And by the way, just so delighted to have some amazing sponsors on board. Really, I would say the 4 names that have made what I'm doing possible. I couldn't be doing it without Ecamm, because that is obviously the live production software that's running it all. I couldn't do it without Rode. Rode is I'm using the Rodecaster Pro 2 here, which is handling all of the audio routing to route between 2 computers. And we've got the main live feed, we've got the Zoom feed for the speakers, we've got the commentators in the second computer Zoom, and then there's other things going on as well. It's all being routed through the Rodecaster Pro 2. There's a great feature on the Rodecaster Pro 2 as well, where I can set up a back channel. So if I press this button here, it's just going to basically sort of take my audio out from the main feed. And then it's just going to allow me to have a sort of back channel with the speakers. I can do the same with the second computer as well. So just the features that you get with the Rodecaster allow you to sort of do all of this. And that's really the thing here, is that all of this technology is very enabling, so that just like regular folks like me can sit in my little garden studio and do something like this, a full-on international event. And it's just a series of simple steps. So all of the things that you use for, switching back and forth between scenes, just like I'm doing here on a Zoom call, it's only the same things that you're doing when you've got your guest speakers coming in and you've just got a scene set up that's your guest speaker and their slide deck, or your guest speaker full screen because they're doing their own live production on their end with their presentation. It's only really like a very simple process, but just repeating it. That's the thing. I always like to break things down into their sort of simplest forms. And in a previous life as an architect and running an architectural design and construction company, that's something that when you look back at the finished building, hopefully looks impressive, but you know, you might think like that's really complex and how was it done? But everything is just basically a series of simple steps that are not hard. So that's what I want to just give over is this thing that whatever you're doing in just regular live production of a meeting or a simple video with two different camera angles, it's just an expansion of that, but the same simple steps. So then also to have Elgato, I mean, I couldn't be doing it, and I simply wouldn't be doing it without Stream Deck as well. And actually, out of all the things in my studio, the Stream Deck, okay, I've probably got a little bit extreme with them. I've got another one just over here and two on the floor, so there's sort of 6 in the studio. But you could certainly do a huge amount with just one. And in fact, for a year, that's all I was using. And the Stream Deck, out of all the gear that I've got in the studio, if you had to say, like, we're going to take it all away, but we're going to leave you with one thing, without a doubt, out of all the software and hardware, it would be the Stream Deck that I'd keep, because the Stream Deck is something that isn't just a piece of studio gear, although it is obviously, you know, it's got the word stream in the name, and it is ostensibly designed for, you know, switching scenes and things like that. But it's only once you get one that you realize it's just the ultimate productivity tool. And I love the Rodecaster to bits, and I love Ecamm, and I love all these other things. But without Stream Deck, you know, the rest of my life would fall apart in my computer life, because it is just such a powerful productivity tool. So to have Elgato supporting the event is just amazing as well. These are all my favorite companies that are behind the event. It's kind of phenomenal to me personally. Obsbot as well are making some amazing cameras these days, and it's kind of funny that 4 years ago, when I started with the whole sort of content creation journey and on YouTube and looking to create better videos in one take, which was why I started the channel. I was doing a bit of stuff with video before, but it was let's say a failure because I was taking far too long to make my videos, and therefore I wasn't really shipping on them for a separate course, not to Take One Tech stuff. But yeah, so 4 years, I would say, seriously, you know, studying this craft, the one take methodology and the live production method. And when I started out, there were you know, the main things that people were using as their cameras, or the main cameras that people were choosing, were, you know, mirrorless cameras that were, you know, proper full-on cameras that were used for photography and videography and so on. And things like webcams, although at the time there were things like the Logitech Brio, which was, you know, quite far ahead of other webcams, but it felt like there were those two options for us. You know, it was either we were using a mirrorless camera, something like that. I mean, right now my camera is the Sony ZV-E10, which was a hugely popular camera at the time that I started, and still is indeed, or the ZV-1, another popular camera with streamers just because of the simplicity. And I've got one of those actually in a different set. So this camera that I've got over the back here is looking over at where my TV will ultimately be. But that camera is a ZV-1, another popular camera with streamers as well. But it felt like, you know, if you wanted to level up your quality, those were the sorts of cameras that you were going to have to look at. And I feel like the companies like Obsbot have kind of changed the game, because they've made these somewhat specialized cameras, but that are just giving really good image quality. So the camera that I've got over the back here, so this camera is the Obsbot Meet 2. Then I've got the Obsbot Tiny 2, which is this one that I'm looking at here. Just up above me, I've got the Obsbot... press the right button. This is the Obsbot Tail Air. That's my sort of top-down camera, and I've got a couple of those around the studio as well. So these are, as I say, somewhat specialized cameras in terms of their... Well, the Meet 2 is a really lightweight, just what you would class as, I suppose, a typical webcam. But the Tiny 2 is a really great camera that is got this PTZ function, so pan, tilt, zoom. So this one, we can change the position of it, if my continuity camera doesn't stop out, where you can do the pan, tilt, zoom. It's got AI features built in, so it can do tracking and things like that. Same with the Tail Air as well. This is a PTZ camera, although I've got it pointing straight down at the moment. But the thing that's great about this is the connectivity, so you can run it over NDI wirelessly. I've got another one just behind me that's running wirelessly over NDI. You can run them over the network as well. And then they've got HDMI out and USB out. So it's a really versatile camera because of all the different ways it can connect and how you can use it remotely, you know, as a remote camera setup. So companies like Obsbot that are creating these, as I say, somewhat specialist cameras. There's 3 cameras there that I've just mentioned, all for different use cases. And crucially as well, all at different price points. And when you think about the Sony ZV-E10, which I think it's about I want to say about $750, and then the lens that I'm using, the Sigma 30 millimeter, that is I think around maybe $300. So you're talking about $1,000 or $1,200 for the camera, whereas the Meet 2, which is the one behind me, is I think about $100, $150 or something like that. So people like OBSBot, and OBSBot in particular is, as I say, powering. Apart from my primary camera, that's what I'm using in all of my my setup. So to have OBSBot on board as well as a sponsor is just amazing to me. So these are the four companies, as it happens, that I'm using to power everything, and they're also sponsoring the event. And by the way, the majority of the stuff that I'm using in my studio is stuff that I've bought. I'm not using it because they are a sponsor. They are a sponsor because I'm using it, if you see what I mean. So yeah, let me just come to the chat to see if I have got any questions that I've missed. I do have a habit of waffling on, in case you haven't noticed. Hey, Dan, great to see you've made it. Owen, you got a bigger smile right now. That is a reference to the ongoing saga of Dan's internet connection. And we were in the office hours for the Academy last night, and further developments. So I'm glad that you've got a smile on your face today, because the internet problems in remote parts of the world. Well, actually not remote. I mean, I would class myself as probably more remote, but you just happen to be, or Dan happens to be, about 2 miles away from the nearest fiber. So I don't know the problems we face. Hey, Andy, great to see you here. Another man who knows all about, who knows more about proper live production. I mean, I talk about live production from my desk, but Andy's a proper live producer with proper studio desks and everything, as well as Ecamm. No problem. Great to see you. See you next time. Let's see. Is there a bit of hardware that you don't own but would love to have? Maybe something that doesn't exist, dream bit of kit for your setup. So things that do exist that I'm kind of itching to just use, but really can't justify the need for it, would be the Stream Deck Studio. So Stream Deck made this product, which is for rack mounting, and I would love to try it out and test it, but I've got a Stream Deck problem as it is. I don't need another one, but just to show you what this is. And by the way, there is a reason why that I can the little tech devil on my shoulder can justify this. It is that there is a program that you can use with Stream Deck, which is called Companion. So usually when you're programming Stream Deck, apologies if you know all this, by the way, TC, and hello, welcome to the live stream as well. But we normally program Stream Deck with the Stream Deck application on our computer. So this is the one that looks a little bit like this, where basically you've got this view which looks the same as, in this case, my 32-key Stream Deck, and it's all programmed using plugins here. But there is another application which you can use completely instead of this as well, which is called Companion. And Companion is a piece of software that can have somewhat deeper integration with lots of other different things. Now, actually, one of the main reasons people use Companion with Stream Deck is to control something like the ATEM Mini. So that is a hardware camera switcher. And so they can use Companion to control that, but there are other things you can do with Companion as well. It has some other different functions that you don't get in the regular Stream Deck, and actually it's used a lot in studios. And so the Stream Deck Studio was created specifically for people who are in that kind of studio environment. So you can see here it's built more into like a sort of mixing desk environment here, where you've got other different rack mounted things. So rack mounting is these sort of standard blocks or units, and so this is something that that is still sort of on my list of things to try, but I just don't necessarily have the need for it yet, so I'm not going to do that myself. But so that is to answer that question of something that I would potentially want to try, but I just can't justify at the moment. Now, something that doesn't exist. It kind of exists already, but it doesn't quite do everything that I need it to do. And it's something that I don't use daily, but I am using it for the summit. And that is this. It's the Rodecaster Video. My continuity camera on my iPhone seems to be playing up today. There it is. So that's the Rodecaster Video. Now, this is an amazing piece of kit because it basically combines the functionality of a Rodecaster. So it's got the audio inputs. I'll give up on that continuity cam. It's got all of the audio inputs that you've got actually on the Rodecaster Duo, but with some enhancements. So you've got 2 microphone inputs with XLR. You can also connect to separate wireless mics as well. And then it's got all the audio routing with the multiple channels like you've got on the Duo and the Pro 2 as well. You can connect up to 4 HDMI cameras and then also 2 USB cameras as well to give you potentially 6 cameras, and then you can switch between them. The thing that I would love it to do though is actually provide all of those individual camera feeds out to the Mac as individual cameras rather than having to switch. Now, before this summit in particular, I have actually routed 3 of my cameras through this. So if I go to my main scene here, my top-down camera there is actually now coming through this. My secondary camera, which is pointing over to that other scene, is there. And then my main camera is now on there. So I am actually doing this camera switching alone with the Rodecaster Video. Now, ordinarily, I would recommend not getting a hardware camera switcher if you're using Ecamm, because Ecamm does all of that itself. I'm only using it for the event though, because I want to be able to feed the camera into my main computer, but also have it feed into my secondary computer as well. So I'm doing some video routing with that. But what I would really love is all the cameras that come in through the Rodecaster Video to just show up as individual cameras on Ecamm. So at the moment, I've just basically got in this scene, for example, the camera is set to Rodecaster Video, and then whichever button I press on here is what is coming through into Ecamm. But that loses the ability then to have 2 of those cameras on screen at the same time. However, if it could present all of those cameras to the computer as, you know, my CVE10, my OBSBot up at the top here, and, you know, the other cameras, that'd be great, because then I could use the Rodecaster Video as a camera hub whilst also, you know, giving me that, offloading all of that from not having lots of different cam links, capture cards plugged into the computer and whatever. The other thing though that I would like is that it had the full-on mixer, because I would miss if I was using the Rodecaster Video, although I say it's got a full-on you know, a Rodecaster built into it in terms of the audio, so the multiple mic inputs. Obviously, one thing that's missing on it is it doesn't have all of the faders. So if we could imagine something which basically looked like the Rodecaster Pro 2, but just with a bit of a chin down at the bottom, and then down at the bottom you had all of this stuff down here for the video side of things, and you had all the video coming in, but could also present it out to Ecamm, that would be the all-in-one video and camera hub to allow you to connect up to 6 cameras to your computer, in the Rodecaster Pro 2's case, up to 4 mics and 2 wireless mics, and that then would be the sort of perfect interface for me. So that would be what that would be what it is if to answer that question. Let's see. Hello, the Ink Inspired. Hey, Jason, great to see you here. I have a YouTube channel where I sketch architecture, urban sketching. Any recommendations for an overhead camera for me to live stream sketching? I mean, the one that I'm using for my top down at the moment is this this Tail Air, but it's overkill for a top down camera. But honestly, that Tiny 2 is which is this one over here. So that one is a great camera. It's got a really good image. But then there's also the Meet 2, which I've got actually up on my prompter. It's over there. So my continuity camera dropping out again. Here we go. This one. So this is the Meet 2, and it's quite far away from me. So, you know, the image quality there. But if you imagine that as being a top-down camera directly above you, actually the image quality would be fine for something like that. So yeah, OBSBot makes some great cameras. So that would be sort of my suggestion for that. And the Meet 2, I forget the price. Let me just get that for you. I'll drop it into here. So it is this one. They've got some really great cameras coming out. There's the Tail Air 2 coming out imminently. I've got one on the way for testing. That's basically like the Tail Air that I'm using, but it's also got built-in optical zoom. It's kind of a beast. But this was the one that I was talking about. The Meet 2. I know this one's just been released. I don't know what the difference in specs between those are. Let's have a quick look at this. The OBSBot Meet 2. So this is the one that I'm using, and let's see what the other one is by comparison to that. The Meet 2 SE. So the the Meet 2 is not a PTZ camera, but it does have this feature of, you can zoom in and then it will still give you this like a cropping effect or panning and cropping effect, panning and zooming effect, I should say. I'm not sure of the specs of this one. I haven't actually looked at this, but they're all of the OBSBot cameras are great. So that would be a suggestion there. And I mean, this is the point I was making earlier. When I started, when I upgraded from my 10-year-old Canon, I got a Sony ZV-E10, which is the one I'm using right now, and I also got a Sony ZV-1, which I was using for my top-down camera. And the ZV-1 is like, what is it, $600 or something like that. And so yeah, to have these sorts of cameras, I mean, as I say, the one I'm using is the Meet 2, and that is 100 and something, 129, I think it was. 129. So yeah, you can get a really good, multi-camera setup for a fraction of the cost that we used to be able to. So that would be my my suggestion. Hey Chris, great to see you here. Thanks for stopping by. Another one of our awesome speakers at the event coming up. By the way, saying that we've got all these great sponsors for the event, I wouldn't have been able to get those sponsors without having an awesome lineup of speakers. And so my approach there was to get some amazing speakers on board, and then I reached out to companies for sponsorship. And basically every single person that I sent the stuff to about sponsoring the event were just blown away by all the amazing folks that we've got speaking. So it wouldn't have been possible without amazing folks like Chris doing, and he'll be kind of like our first session. I'm doing a bit of a sort of intro, but then Chris will be our first session up on day one. Am I still using Keynote for overlays? Hey, Shannon, great to see you. Am I still using Keynote for overlays? Yeah, so there are animations in here that I'm using, such as, I should probably just use this as a subtle way to do a little promo, like this sort of thing. If you want to book a consultation call with me, click the link in the chat or the link that you see on screen. Now, that little animation, that was made with Keynote. So that's something that I created in Keynote, exported as a video file, and then brought it into Ecamm as a video file, and then I just triggered that with the Stream Deck. In terms of overlays, as in the way that you're seeing this screen look now, it used to be that with Ecamm, we would get a camera feed, and then we would have to kind of like make shapes with, the borders and punch little holes through it. So we had like a transparency through it where we could put that over the top of the camera to give us some nice frames and borders. But basically, Ecamm's come a huge way since then. And so now we can just do that all in Ecamm. So actually what you're looking at here in this Ecamm scene is I've got my main camera. So that is here. If I just hide the camera, I've got a comment that's coming in. So this is coming in here. And then I've got, these are just little text boxes with text in. I've literally just put quotes and made them big and styled them. And then I've got a rectangle in the background. And then what you're seeing going on in the background there is a little overlay there. There is an animation. And then there is a background image. So basically everything now we can just build up into Ecamm itself. So if I just put those things all back in and sort of build that back up, that is how I'm doing that. And that's the same with all of those other different scenes. Now, I do certainly use Keynote, though, for when I'm doing kind of presentation style things. So anytime I'm bringing information on and off the screen, I'm absolutely still doing that all with Keynote. And then I just share the Keynote into Ecamm, and that's how I do that. And we incorporate the live video in Keynote as well to do that, to bring that in. I suppose I should just pull up something and show you how that is working. So you get what I'm talking about. I should be more prepared for that one, but there you go. This is just a recent thing that I did with the Ecamm Live Accelerator course, which I ran last a few weeks. Just finally recovered. I don't know why, but I set the time of that at 10 a.m. and 10 p.m. my time, where I normally normally asleep by 10 p.m. And so I kind of shot myself in the foot there. And I still, to this day, don't know why I did that to myself. But anyway, I'll learn for next time. But if I click on this presentation, so if I switch over to a scene now, I'm going to switch over to a scene where I'm basically sharing Keynote. But Keynote, I've got my live video coming in. So now I'm at a scene. What you're seeing now is my video coming through Keynote. and into Ecamm. But what this allows me to do is do things like this, where you can animate things on. So this was the day 10 of the accelerator. And then we've got these different bullet points. So this is just using regular Keynote animations that are coming up onto the screen like this. And then we can get that all off the screen, or put it on again if we want, and then have it all slide off. So if I just come out of Keynote though, whoops, go back to that scene and exit Keynote instead, then this is basically what I've done here. I've got, titles and things like that. And so all of the video and the titling is in this case coming through Keynote just directly into Ecamm. So to answer your question, yes, I use Keynote for presentations, but actually all the overlays and stuff are just now built out fully in Ecamm itself. Hey, Keisha, great to see you here. Thanks for coming. George as well, great to see you too. Let's see. I'm glad, Jason, that was helpful, and I do my best to help people avoid the mistakes that I made, because I've made my fair share along the way. Hey, Michelle, great to see you here as well. Thanks for coming. Yes, you're effectively on first. So the lineup is, and I'm still tweaking some things. We've got almost everybody. By the way, this is another unbelievable thing. 30 people, and I kind of mapped out like, well, this is, we've got speakers for day 1, day 2, day 3, and I kind of mapped everybody out. And then Beverly is one of our team, so she was handling, getting in touch with people and making sure that the session times all worked for them and everything like that. And I couldn't believe it that like by the end of like 2 days after sending this out, everybody just confirmed the slots that I had randomly sort of organized. As I said, well, this is a starting point. It's going to be a nightmare getting 30 people's schedules to all line up, and miraculously it all seemed to just work. So that's really cool. But yeah, basically you're kind of almost the first one up. I'm doing an intro session to begin with though. So yeah. It is indeed going to be a great event with some amazing people. And the thing about it is as well, it's not just about the tech, it is about like the mindset. And in particular, we've got a couple of speakers that are of particular relevance to me. I mean, they all are really, but in particular, Kat Mulverhill and let me just see down on day 3, actually charity sessions moving from day 3, but on day 3 in particular, we've got Kat, who's talking about her momentum system. One thing that I know as like a coach and a mentor is that it's all very well having like the tools and the the techniques and the gear and everything like that, but there's still often roadblocks in people's way. Sometimes we know what to do, but we're still not doing it. Let me speak for myself. I know what to do, but I'm still not doing it. But I had an amazing conversation with Kat for 5 hours when I flew to the US and then had to come back the next day because of some emergency at home, but it was totally worth it for the 5 hours that me and Kat and I spent chatting, because it gave me a much deeper understanding of my wiring. And on that same note, we've got Charity, who's talking all about ADHD or ADD, and talking about embracing that as a superpower and understanding, first of all, if it's something that is in your wiring, but also understanding those around you and getting the most out of team members that have got these certain traits. And it was through my discussions with Kat. I haven't been formally diagnosed with ADHD or anything like that, but as I go through the list of traits, there are certainly many of them that ring true to me. And actually, it was so enlightening that it kind of changed the way that I approach things with my own personal productivity. And it allows you to be a little bit more compassionate towards yourself, I suppose, if you understand, ways that you, traits that you have, but also allows you to sort of harness them in a better way as well. So those sessions in particular, you might not think that those are business growth topics, but for me, they certainly are. And having a better understanding of our own wiring is something that's really important. So yeah, that's why I'm thrilled to have folks like that on board as well. Hey, Nadim, let's see what you're asking. What is the best way to create a new scene while I'm live? Once I'm live and I want to create a new video material, customer gave me, so the way to do that is using a feature in, presumably you mean in Ecamm. The way to do that is to use a feature called preview mode. And so right now I've got this scene that's going out into the broadcast. But if I go into preview mode, then what happens is we've got a scene here, which is now going, this is the broadcast, the one that I'm shaking about down at the bottom of the screen. That's the broadcast and what would be seen. If I come out of my live demo mode, you can see that's still the same thing that's on the screen. But what I can do behind the scenes though, is I can now create a completely new scene. I can add in a camera. A camera. Let's do that. So I can put my camera in. And of course, it's reverted to my FaceTime. I don't know why that's even in there as a camera, actually. Let's go back and put this to camera A. But now we can basically make this scene. Now, just to come out of demo mode for a moment, the live production is still this one. It's still the thing that is showing in this preview. But we could also just incorporate a video. I mean, you mentioned a video, so we could just drag and drop the video into this scene. But then as soon as I click publish, that's when that's going to go into the production here. So now when I click publish, we're now in that scene. And so coming out of live demo, you can see it's like that. So that would be the way that you can do that. Now, I personally try and avoid using this. Obviously, there are instances like the example you're saying where you use it. One of the things that they put in the latest beta is this much bigger yellow box around it. So you can clearly see that this is the preview window, because the reason why I kind of avoided it in the past was I would sometimes be making changes and then forget to publish them. So, I mean, it's such a stupid mistake to make, really, because that's, you can see clearly the output here. And I suppose coming from if people are a proper live producer, a proper producer from a production suite, actually this is much more the way these things work. You'll see on the interface for for 8M and things like that, they do just simply have 2 program windows. I actually think OBS works more like this as well. I might be wrong about that, but from what I can recall, they do have this concept of the production and then the preview window there, so you can basically queue up different scenes like this. So we queue up the next scene and then we click publish. For me, because I've just got the scenes and I know what I'm going to, I feel like I don't need to do that. I just press the button and I know that I'm going to that scene. So I always get out of that and just don't bother using that live preview mode. But that would be the answer to that question as to how you could do that and create different scenes when you go live. Do I book calls? I certainly do have consultation calls for that sort of stuff, and I've got lots of resources on the website as well. So that would be that link, so takeonetech.io/consultation, and you can book a free discovery call, and then I do paid calls there as well. There's also the Academy, which gives you access to potentially, depending on the tier you're on, we've got obviously a wealth of courses in there with related to Ecamm, Stream Deck, Rodecaster, and various other things. And then also on the VIP tier of the Academy, we also have office hour sessions, which are every week, where it's anything from 90 minutes to 2.5 hours sometimes, where we talk all about these sorts of things and actually how you can use these tools, not just from the tech side, but also from the business side as well. So how you can actually grow a business from these tools as well, which ultimately, if you think about your ikigai, I don't know if you're familiar with that term. And that's that Japanese term that means the reason for being, or your reason for being, and it includes things you're good at, things the world needs, things you enjoy doing, and then also crucially things that you can get paid for. And if you can find the intersection of all of those things, then it's pretty special. And that's kind of what I feel like I've found with Take One Tech. Actually, I'm a total geek and love doing all this stuff, but also to be able to help people in the process as well and create content around it is really the rewarding part. And there's a great little thing with Ikigai where you look at, like, if any one of those things are missing, then sometimes you feel like, okay, you might be making money but you're not feeling fulfilled, or you're not feeling that you're having an impact. And if any one of those is missing, there is a sort of feeling that you get inside, some level of emptiness somewhere in that spectrum. So it's a great thing to check out. So let's see. Why still no module for Ecamm Live in Bitfocus Companion? So this is a good point, actually. I suppose just because the Ecamm, so this is the the tool I was talking about, Companion, is also something that can control Ecamm. I suppose the thinking there is just that they have got such a full-featured Ecamm plugin for Stream Deck here that it kind of covers off everything. You've got an Ecamm for Zoom plugin with just things for controlling Zoom, but then like of all of the plugins that I've seen for Stream Deck, it feels to me like this is the most complete. So I suppose they've just focused on that way of controlling Ecamm. However, if you are using Companion, then there's kind of two ways you can do it. Either you can use your Companion buttons within Stream Deck. So there is a Companion plugin for the regular Stream Deck app, and so you can put those things on there. But what you're talking about there, Nadim, is that if you are using like 100% Companion to control your Stream Decks, it would be nice to have those same buttons available in that for your setup. So I don't know why there isn't actually. It would be a good thing to put in as a feature request though, because they certainly, Ecamm has been developed. The funny thing about Ecamm is it's like the best, for me, the best live production software for, consumer grade software on the market that there is. But the developers behind it, the huge development team of Ken and Glenn, the twins who developed it, they're not kind of using it themselves. So they're not live streamers. They're not creating lots of content themselves. And I would dare to say that they're not even really using it extensively themselves in Zoom or in, live production. It came out of another application that they had called Skype Call Recorder. By the way, if you use Skype, they're killing that off in May as well. So sorry about that. So you have to look at other options there. That's maybe a conversation for another thing. But it came out of that and then it sort of developed. But the beauty of the fact that they aren't, heavy sort of power users of their own software, although obviously they're the power creators of it, is that they're really open and responsive to any requests that people have got in the community because they're driven by what the community wants. And I think that that's one of the things that I love about it is, you can put a feature request into the Ecamm Live Facebook group or into the beta group, and you'll quite often just get a response from Ken or Glenn, and it will go onto their list, and they've got a long list, but they will go through and that's how things get in. The idea of shape overlays, which was something we didn't have just, I suppose, 2 years ago, that came out of people asking for it. The various other different features that have come in have been driven by people. Same with Stream Deck. The Stream Deck plugin, people will drop in and say, could we get a button to do X, Y, and Z? And they go, yeah, we could probably do that. And then it'll just pop into the next beta. So they're really, really responsive. So to your point and your question there, definitely drop that into the beta group or into the Ecamm group as a feature request because I'm sure they are listening. And I totally get your question, by the way. It's having it as a companion button rather than a regular Stream Deck button. So having said how much I love Rodecaster, just another question that came up recently, in fact, just yesterday on a call, somebody was saying, because I was talking about, I happened to mention Rodecaster in my conversation about how I did something in answer to one of their questions. And the question was, do I need a Rodecaster? Do they need a Rodecaster, more to the point? And I would say that, what I find powerful with the Rodecaster is its audio routing capability. So it's the fact that I've got different channels for my Ecamm, for Zoom, and can pass my music through it and do all of that mixing in here. But for the majority of people, if all you're doing is you're on your Zoom calls or you're, and it's kind of like a one-way thing, as in you're not doing live production and bringing people out of it, or if you're just creating regular videos. I mean, the difference in my videos before I had a Rodecaster to now is non-existent. There is no real difference. It comes in for me though for that live production capability. So having this mic, which is the one that I started with, the MV7, and I would still be using now, honestly, if Rode did send me this mic for review some time ago, so I've been using that one ever since, but I would still be using this one had I not received that, because it's still a great mic. But this one I was just using over USB into my computer. Then it fed into Ecamm. Ecamm itself can do mixing. OBS can do, mixing in music and things like that as well. And so for me, the real power of the Rodecaster, assuming, of course, as a solo creator, I'm Billy No Mates here in my little studio. So it's not like I've got people that are with me where I want to have multiple microphone inputs for that from that point of view. So if you're just basically wanting to record your audio, then yeah, a Rodecaster isn't necessarily, isn't one of these things that like, oh, you've got to have it because that's what other people have at all. And if you are just wanting to take your mic in, I mean, something like the Rode PodMic works over USB as well. And actually, the audio processing capabilities that the Rodecaster gives, which is also great, like the noise gate, so that when I stop speaking, it goes quiet and blocks out any noise from my air conditioning unit and so on. And then there is things like the compressor, which is something that helps to level out your audio volume, and various other different processors. Those are all features of the Rodecaster Pro 2, but they're also features just of the Rode PodMic if you're using it over USB as well. So yeah, the Rodecaster, although I love it and wouldn't want to be separated from it, it is something that's one of those things that if you've got the need for it, then it's there, but it's not an essential bit of gear by any stretch. Same with the Rodecaster Video as well. And this came up a lot when I posted my first review video of the Rodecaster Video. I talked earlier about the A10 Mini, and somebody asked me just before I came on here, I answered a comment where somebody had seen a picture I posted of my setup and said, are you now using the Rodecaster Video over Ecamm, or how's it all fitting together? The thing with Ecamm, as I mentioned earlier, was that if you use the Rodecaster Video, then it's only going to be presenting really one camera feed into your computer. So given that Ecamm Live is software for live production and the Rodecaster Video is hardware for live production of, camera switching and things like that, it's a case of really probably choosing one over the other. Now, if you've only got a couple of camera angles and you want to use the Rodecaster Video for all of its audio features as well, then it certainly does work for that. But as I say, I've now got one scene in Ecamm and switching back and forth between these. But this means then that if I was on this camera angle and went to my screen share, then now suddenly I've got that camera angle over there and I need to switch it back. So that's where you get this complexity with using a hardware switcher and software camera switcher. So yeah, as I say, the question came up, am I now sort of integrating the Rodecaster Video into my main production? And actually, day to day, I'm not doing, but I am using it for this event in particular, because this is going to allow me to do some interesting video routing as well as the audio routing as well. So that's why I'm using it in that setup. But where would you want to use the Rodecaster Video? Well, some people don't use a Mac, first of all, so they're not going to use Ecamm necessarily. Also, Ecamm, whilst it is for me a really user-friendly piece of software, and I find it works the way my mind works. I don't know if that's a good advertisement or not, because my mind works in funny ways. But certainly, I find it easy to create the scenes and switch between them and so on. However, if you are wanting to have a setup which is basically just a push-button setup, then certainly, if you're sharing it with folks and they come in and they see something like this is, although you can build it up in steps so it doesn't look so complex, it is something that's got to, potentially work for other people. So having a dedicated studio space with a couple of cameras, a couple of microphones, and then being able to switch those scenes quickly and easily with the Rodecaster Video just sitting on the desk, no computer in sight, then it's also great for that. Or if you want to have your computer to, bring content into the production with the Rodecaster Video. So it certainly has its place, and it's not what I'm using as my main sort of go-to for live production, but I'm certainly using it within the event itself. Let's have a look at this question here. Jumping in late, and you may have covered this. Do you know when 4.4 will be out? So that is Ecamm 4.4. They haven't announced the official date of when it'll be out. I can't imagine it'll be too long away, because we're at that stage in the beta process or development where there's not sort of new features coming in. They're in that phase of just kind of tweaks, and when you see an update come out, it will just be minor improvements here and there. So yeah, no official date on that, but my guess is that it wouldn't be too long now, as in talking weeks, not months. So I would imagine that all the new features that we've got in 4.4 will be in the beta, will be in that main version very soon. Now, another one that came in as well, which was actually something that came up during the Ecamm Live Accelerator, and I thought it was worth mentioning because I've kind of touched on it already, really. But somebody was saying about, when we see pictures of people's setups and they have, all the screens, all the Stream Decks, the Rodecaster, and multiple cameras, multiple computers, even at times, and things like that. It can sometimes feel daunting when you see that and think that you're maybe a long way off having the ultimate setup. But really, as I mentioned earlier, with just my little MV7 plugged in over USB, and then a USB Stream Deck plugged in, and a 10-year-old camera. And really, the lighting that I was using at the time were a couple of just really low cost soft boxes, so they did have that diffusion on. So what I mean by that is, these lights here have got a big surface area. Obviously the light source is just a smaller source in the back, but then we've got this big diffusion plane on the top of it, which just helps to sort of spread out the light. Well, I did have some low cost soft boxes that just used regular light bulbs in them, and even just with those, which were I guess $50 for a pair of them with a couple of stands as well, a 10-year-old Canon camera which I'd kind of repurposed, which was only giving me 720p output, but Ecamm was scaling up to 1080, then an MV7 and a Stream Deck. Really, you can do a huge amount with that, and that's what I like about Ecamm, is the power of it is in the switching and the controlling it with the Stream Deck. So you can really do a huge amount with just that, and so you really don't need all of the toys and all of the gear that, that some people have. They certainly can add things over time. So like I say, the Rodecaster is kind of essential for what I'm doing with the audio routing now with this event coming up, and with Zoom, where I'm bringing people in and out of Zoom into the production. So there are certainly a place for that. But if what you're looking to do is just sort of level up your on-screen video first presence, then you really don't need too much. And as I say, with those OBSBot cameras now being so affordable, not to mention the continuity camera, which is letting me down a little bit today for some reason, it keeps dropping out. But with those, like the OBSBot Meet 2, $120, whatever it is, you can get a really good image out of that. So yeah, you certainly don't need all of these things. The other question I get a lot is, which Stream Deck should I buy? So I do have a few of them on my desk, as you've seen. The Stream Deck XLs are these two. So this is the 32 key. And then there's the Stream Deck Plus, which has 4 dials on the bottom and 8 buttons. And then there's also the Stream Deck Pedal, which is what I'm using on the floor. 2 of those. Each of those has effectively 3 buttons that you can control with your feet. For me, the first one I think anybody should get is the 32 key, and that's because with the Stream Deck Plus, you've only got 8 buttons, and although you've got the dial, so you can do some interesting things with those. In Ecamm, you can control all the audio levels as well. There are some add-ons that you can get for the Stream Deck Plus now, so you can actually use it as an audio interface, taking in an XLR mic, or you can use it as a USB hub with a little add-on for that as well. So the Stream Deck Plus is kind of interesting, but for me, it's that lack of buttons that is the thing. There is also a 6-key Stream Deck, and there's a 15-key Stream Deck, and I think that a common mistake that people make is thinking, well, I'm not going to need more than 15 buttons because I've maybe got 3 main scenes in Ecamm. Maybe I want a record button, maybe a couple of zoom controls, maybe something for controlling slides. And you sort of add up, what you want to actually do with it. And you think, yeah, probably 15 buttons is going to be more than enough. The thing is, when you get it, you realize, as I mentioned earlier, it is kind of like the ultimate productivity tool. And so when you start getting into using it that way, you realize that, oh yeah, actually a little bit more, a few more buttons might be very helpful here. So obviously there are budgetary considerations, of course, but if you're making your decision based on what you think you're going to use it for, then just be open to the possibility that it can do a hell of a lot more than you could possibly imagine. And so then you'll be glad of those extra buttons. So as a first stop, I would always say the Stream Deck XL. There is a benefit, though, to the Stream Deck Plus. So if you're looking to add a second Stream Deck, then the Stream Deck Plus is a great one to use for that, because what I use the Stream Deck Plus for is actually switching profiles on all of my other Stream Decks. So, and obviously audio controls and brush size and things like that. So like when I press a button over here, for example, it's going to change what is on the screen over there. So I can use this to control what is going out onto those other Stream Decks. So that's a nice way to use it, because it means you can have lots of different profiles profiles, lots of different collections of buttons essentially on your Stream Deck XL, but then easily switch back and forth between them because of that. The pedal, though, is also something that you might think sounds ridiculous if you've never used a foot pedal before. Before the Stream Deck pedal came out, I actually had another pedal, and then I used to use Keyboard Maestro to control various different things with it. So it wasn't a completely new concept to me, but it's kind of weird if you're used to just controlling a computer with a mouse and a keyboard to think suddenly you're going to be controlling it with your feet now as well. But there are lots of instances where that's useful. Even just if I want to change a scene, or if I'm going to like the next slide, for example, in a presentation, being able to have your hands free so that you don't feel like you're sort of with your hand on your Stream Deck and unable to move, have a little bit more movement for even just that, to switch back and forth between your presentation screen and bring up your slides. If you do use a teleprompter for actual teleprompting, as in notes that are scrolling up on your screen, then being able to control those with the Stream Deck pedal is useful as well. And also, depending on the type of content you're creating, some people in the digital stage community are doing crafting, and so they're actually working with their hands, and then they want to sort of capture that with the video. And so to be able to do camera switching with their feet whilst they are demonstrating something is kind of useful as well. So the pedal is also a great addition as well. Just coming into the chat again. Use 3 Stream Deck XLs because I don't have the luxury to go through pages. I do a live big show. Yeah, do you know that? So that is actually the reason why I added my second Stream Deck is because yes, you can have pages for the benefit of everyone else here. What we're talking about is, oops, wrong scene. There we go. Seamless. You do sometimes press the wrong button. But here you've got these buttons, and then you have got different pages. So I can sort of page through to different pages like this and show what's on those pages. But the issue there is, and the reason why I added in my second Stream Deck is because I always want to be able to know that if I reach down to my Stream Deck and press this button in the bottom left-hand corner in my case, it's going to take me through to my main scene. So without looking at it, you just kind of instinctively know which button to press to go to which camera. If I want to go to the camera over my back, I can just feel down to where the button is, or switching over to that camera is going to be this button. So you can just sort of instinctively feel where the buttons are. As soon as you introduce pages in a live environment where you're switching between pages, then suddenly you can find yourself in a situation where you're reaching down to go back to your main scene, and then suddenly the button's not where you thought it was because you're on the wrong page. And that used to happen to me a lot when I was trying to use pages. And so I know that you know this, Nadim, you've got the same thing. One of the things I will say is that they did introduce some features which have kind of made this a little bit easier to manage with just one Stream Deck, which is that they added the concept of pinned actions. I mean, you could have technically, if all I was bothered about is knowing that these were my main scenes for my different camera angles, I could have obviously just duplicated those on other pages. But if we go to this page 2, you'll see that there's a gap there at the moment. But if I come back to this one here and right click on it and say pin, then basically it's going to put that button on all pages, assuming that there's nothing in that spot. Now, if I go to page 3, for example, there's the same scene. It's a bad example. Let's go to one of these other ones. Well, there you go. So I've got a back button. So because there's a button there already, then it's not going to come through onto that page. But now if I move that button, then that will be there. So I'll still have that button to be able to get back to my my main scene. By the way, these 10 pages, these are all demos. So apart from this one and this one, these are the scenes that the main pages that I have. This one was the demo that I was doing during the accelerator. This one, well, I guess this is a separate profile, but yeah, lots of demo pages in there. I probably need to clean them out. So, but that was something that they added in, which I think is useful, because then if you have got those kind of like mission critical scenes, then it means you can just easily get back to the main thing if it's pinned. The other one then was I used to have like all these different calls to action, where I want to pop up on screen different things. Well, what they added in was this thing with folders. I didn't used to use folders, but I do now for things where if I create a folder here and I go into the folder, and then let's say I want to play one of those little animations. So if I say play animation, and then I'm just going to choose one of those things. So let's see if I'll just pop that one up. So what they added in though was in folders, you can go to, where is it? here, click on the little back arrow, you've got this option to auto exit. And what that means is then that you've got a folder that can potentially contain lots of other different actions. And then when you press the folder and then press on the action, it's going to perform the action, but then it automatically goes back out of it. So that's where I've got like all those little calls to action, because I don't need to have them at all as buttons on here all the time, because I'm not going to be using them all the time. But it's nice just to have a folder that you can just say, okay, I'm going to do some call to action or whatever. So press the button to go into the folder, press the thing, and then you just know that it's going to automatically come back out of it. So that's the those two things in particular: pinned things and pinned actions, and also the auto exit folders. I think if we'd had those at the time, I may not have been so quick to add in my second Stream Deck. But obviously, you'll have to pry it out of my cold dead hands now that it's sitting here on my desk. so yeah, but totally get your point though. That's why we've got, you know, multiple Stream Decks. Is when you're in a live production, you just want to know where the button is that you're going to press to do whatever it is you want to do. So totally get that. Absolutely, I'm all about keeping the tech simple. So you can focus on creating content. Yeah, that is the thing. The more you add in, the more friction that you're adding in, and the more potential. Yeah, I know Doc doesn't like the overwhelm word, but the tech overwhelm. If you've got too many things going on and you haven't built up that muscle memory to know where things are, then yeah, just adding in a load of gear to the beginning can be really overwhelming as well. So definitely start simple and then build it up. That's the same for Stream Deck, by the way. Some people try to build out the ultimate Stream Deck setup with all the buttons and all the all the pages and profiles and things like that, and then it comes to it and they're not actually using it day in, day out. And so then you end up with, I often have calls with people who say, oh, I think I'm just going to start over because I've got all these profiles that I don't even know where things are or what they do. And I went through this, I learned this lesson the hard way, not actually with Stream Deck, but with Keyboard Maestro, which is an automation tool for the Mac. And when I discovered it, I thought, this is amazing. It can do so much. And so I spent the best part of 2 months designing the ultimate productivity system. And I came out of the end of it and I didn't really know how to use it. And I forgot all the keyboard shortcuts and I didn't really use most of it. And so then it just ended up being this thing that sat there. And did I learn my lesson from it? No, because then I got into OmniFocus and created the perfect OmniFocus for task management and had exactly the same problem. But third time round, I learned my lesson and started from scratch again with both of them. And I've now, with Stream Deck, I just thought, right, start simple, start with 1 or 2 buttons and add them in as you need them and as you are using them, so that you build up that muscle memory. And it's the same with the gear in the studio as well. So definitely start simple. It's been a slow process, so thank you. I'm glad you like the Stream Deck and Ecamm content, but yeah, that all just comes through from using it. By the way, when I started on YouTube, I did 100 videos in 100 days, and then extended it out to a year. Although I fell short of the 365, but still, that was something that I was putting out content, and I wasn't intending it to be an Ecamm and Stream Deck channel when I started. It was going to be about although I have done other Mac apps and things like that, it was going to be a general, more sort of tech Mac based channel. The reason why there's so much Ecamm content on there and Stream Deck is because through the process of creating the content, I was just so enthused and blown away by all that we could do with Stream Deck and Ecamm that, I would literally learn something one day and then I'd make a video about it the next day. So it isn't the case that, my channel started when, after decades of experience. Obviously they've not been around that. It's not the case that, I started with all that experience and then decided to make a YouTube channel about it. Actually, all of those early videos, although I'm, I'd say I'm pretty proficient now, but all those early videos were just me, figuring stuff out and thinking, this is amazing, let me make a video about that. So you can totally learn and do it at the same time to develop it. And I'm glad the content, the Stream Deck class and everything like that have been helpful. By the way, that kind of brings me to another thing. I was on a call with somebody just yesterday and they were talking about creating courses and creating content, and there's always this point, like before you start doing it and after. Obviously there's the before and after, and the before part is so many people, I think, don't get to the point of just creating their first video, creating their first course, because there's all these preconceived ideas. One thing I'll say is it gets so much easier to do the one take videos when you start actually putting them out, because you quickly realize that lovely folks like yourself are, will say things like this comment. And that is genuinely what motivates me to do it, is knowing that somebody has taken the content, found it useful, with all the filler words, the mistakes and everything, the little misspeaks and so on along the way that I always inevitably do, in this session, in all my other videos. And regardless of that, there is still value in them. And so thanks for saying that. And to anybody who's just still on the point of not quite getting ready to put out their video or not feeling ready, just start putting it out, because you'll soon realize that there are certainly people that are there waiting to hear what you've got to say about things and wanting to learn from you. So thanks for saying that. I really appreciate it. You have a solution for USB-C iPad only, holding an HDMI connection for about 30 seconds. If you're trying to bring in an iPad into Ecamm, you can literally just plug it in over USB-C into your computer, and the Ecamm will recognize the screen, and it will just pop up as in the camera, actually. So although it's technically screen sharing the iPad, it will show up as a camera. So that would be a suggestion. You can you can take a USB-C to HDMI and take it out that way. But yeah, when I connect an iPad, I just purely use it over that. There are another option would be, there's an app for the iPad and iPhone called NDI HX Capture, I think it is the app on the phone. And that one, you basically start the app running on your phone, and then it broadcasts the output, it broadcasts the screen basically as an NDI feed. And so that's this network device interface thing, which basically transmits the feed of the screen effectively, or camera or whatever. But in this case, it's the screen. It's transmitting that wirelessly over the network. And so as long as your iPad's on the same network as your computer, that would be another way to transmit the what's on your screen into your camera. And so that could potentially avoid that. Oh, I do this all the time. I read a comment and then I just go to the next comment and say, oh yeah, here's a little bit more context connecting to an ATEM Mini. Now, does the ATEM Mini have NDI? Because that might also be a solution then. I'm not sure that it does. I actually I don't know then the answer to that. If you've got, and how are you connecting it at the moment, I guess would be the question. You can certainly get a dongle which is HDMI out, USB-C into the iPad and HDMI out to send it like that, to put it into basically like a capture card effectively. That would be one way of doing it. I don't know how you're doing it at the moment. And then you can take that into the ATEM. Yeah, and apart from that, I don't know. Can ATEM handle NDI inputs? I'm not too sure. That would be my only suggestion. Otherwise, if you've basically got an HDMI interface like the ATEM and you're wanting to get it into that, it would be that solution, basically taking it into HDMI and then taking that into there. I suppose another workaround, if that isn't working, would be to take it in via the computer using a piece of software, but it seems kind of overkill then, to take it into the computer via Ecamm or OBS or something like that, and then feed that separately back into the ATEM. But that kind of seems a little bit of a long way around. Thanks, Rich. I'll take that. Even my filler words are genius. Not sure about that one. Is there a tool can force the video signal out from Sony FX6 to stay vertical? Yeah. The rotation option inside. Yeah. So I guess if you mean, so if you, let me try to unpick this here. If you're saying that you want the video signal out from your Sony FX to stay vertical, and the rotation option inside Ecamm can't keep it rotated if you're using ATEM for all inputs. The one way you could do that, which is again a little bit tricky because you're sort of switching two things at once, is that you could have a placeholder camera in Ecamm. So to show you what I mean, if I have my main scene here, which is this one. So this is my main camera, obviously. Now, if I just duplicate this scene and this camera here, if I go into my placeholder cameras and we'll just create a new placeholder. Oh, in fact, let me use this one. Since now that I'm using the ATEM, the Rodecaster video, a lot of my cameras are dropped out for here, but let's just change this to, change that to this. So you can see, I mean, you can actually see there, that's normally my top-down camera position, and you can see I've got the rotation different there, but we can rotate that. Oops, not this one. Let me go back to this. I'll go to camera B, and we can change the rotation of that. So I could have a scene, which is my main scene, which is using camera A, and then I could have a new scene, which is instead using camera B. And because that's a little bit scary, because the rotation of the camera is set up in the placeholder, it would mean that technically I can have two scenes, one of them with the camera that way and one of them with the camera that way. Now, it's a bit tricky though, because presumably if you're switching from, one camera to the vertical camera, then it would mean effectively, if you're going to go from one to the other, you would need to be switching scenes in Ecamm and in the ATEM at the same time to get them to, to put that rotation in. There's no way basically though, if I think I understand your question, there's no way that you can tell Ecamm to know what camera it is that's going into your ATEM effectively. So the Ecamm doesn't understand what you've got going into your ATEM. All it knows is you've got an ATEM feed that's coming into Ecamm itself. So I don't know if that answers the question, but yeah. This one, it says it's using YUV 59. I've got no idea what YUV is actually. Let me Google that for you. What is YUV? In the context of video, let's see. Might learn something here. It's to do with the color space. Is it about YUV video? Oh, okay, there you go. I'm completely oblivious to this. Digital video is often encoded in YUV format. I see. There we go. That is the, there we go. Learn from Microsoft. Thank you, Microsoft. That's to make up for all the other crimes against technology that you've done. So that is what it means. I'll have to read that article myself later because I don't know about that terminology myself. There's some homework for us. Thoughts about using the built-in iMac camera versus Logitech Brio or Meet 2 for a straight-on headshot? Honestly, the cameras that we've got now on, built-in cameras, they're fine. It's really, for me, is just making sure that you've got the position right. So using the regular built-in iMac camera, if you've got your iMac and the camera's at the right height, it's fine. If I go over to my shot here and then I was to switch over to, my built-in camera, wherever it is, it would just be the position of it. Now, for some reason, it doesn't actually come up here. But yeah, my built-in camera, though, would be FaceTime camera. If I add that in. It would just be, the positioning of it is all wrong. This is not the best shot. So it would just be a case of basically positioning the camera and making sure that you've got it, right, and you've got your framing right. Use the rule of thirds to position it. So what I mean by that is if you think about your screen and just sort of roughly divide it up into thirds, you want to have your eyes more or less at that level rather than centered like this. So many people still put their eyes just on the center line, and I always feel it just feels like they're sort of peering up over the top of the bottom of the screen. But anyway, so use that as a guide there, and then position your camera at more or less eye level. When I used to do my videos before with green screen, I did actually have my camera on top of the screen, and you didn't really notice. It was definitely sort of looking down at me, but that wasn't as bad as this one, which is, yes, this is, this shows up all of this area here, which is not the most flattering look. I call this the up the nose shot as well. It's not the best angle to be looking at. But if you're using the built-in camera in any case on your iMac's going to be about the right height. So again, yeah, don't let thinking that you've got to get some other camera be something that holds you back. It's perfectly fine, and they're great cameras. So there you go. Right, well, with that said, if there are any further questions, drop them into the chat. I'll just give you a few moments because there's this delay that happens with YouTube, and I always seem to manage to cut somebody off just as a question pops in as soon as I finish. You're always welcome to go and drop them into the comments of this if you're watching after the fact as well, and you can also head over to join the Discord as well. I'm not hugely active in Discord, quite honestly, but I'm sort of migrating things over to the Digital Stage Network, which is the community space that I originally set up for Academy members, and now I'm expanding that out. So we've got about 100 and something members in there actually. So I'm intending to at some point migrate entirely off Discord, but for the time being, you can certainly go and drop into there as well. So if there are no further questions, thanks so much for coming along. I hope you find this useful. Don't forget to go and sign up to the Digital Stage Summit, the free event that's happening the 18th to 20th of March. I'll be there, obviously, and be fielding questions and running a couple of sessions myself. But really, we've just got such an amazing lineup of sessions and speakers, and I'll certainly be taking notes and watching the replays myself because, yeah, there's bound to be some sheer gold shared over those 3 days. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. I will try and remember to go and add a video in over here at some point. I need to catch up on the last few live streams, I think. Take care, though. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.